On the very night the noble consort first entered the bedchamber, the Prince Regent took his own life in the study. He clearly hated me to the bone. Yet in the testament he left behind, it was filled with undying love etched for me, the Empress. When this news spread, the entire court was shaken. Ministers jointly submitted memorials demanding my deposition, intent on nailing me to the pillar of shame for unchastity. In the end, my infant son still in swaddling clothes was sent to the noble consort's palace. She rose to become empress, while my family was executed, our corpses left to rot in the wilderness. Yet it was she who had always been the one the Prince Regent longed for but could never possess. The next time I opened my eyes, I was reborn on the very day the noble consort entered the palace. Once more, the Prince Regent chose death for love, scheming to frame me. Before the Emperor, I bowed low and softly spoke. Your Majesty, allow me to open the coffin and examine the body. I had died at the hands of the man I loved. Though my heart brimmed with resentment, in that moment I had no strength left to resist. Ta Tu-yen, his pale fingers holding a cup of wine, cast me a cold, lifeless gaze, as though I were already dead. That gaze shattered me. My life could be taken with a single cup of poison from his hand. But I could not accept it, not such a wrongful death. So I stubbornly asked him, Tu-yen, why do you not believe me? On the words of courtiers alone, you condemn me to death. His cold, penetrating eyes pierced straight through me. I gave a bitter smile, tears streaming at once. For the sake of a testament left by Prince Regent Guowei, you would personally end me. I had known Ta Tu-yen for 7 years, accompanying him from when he was a solitary prince with no allies, until he became the most powerful crown prince. Now, as emperor above all, he cast me aside, though I had borne him a prince. You and Guowei, defying my existence, committing disgrace, how could I ever believe you? Where is the majesty of the Son of Heaven? Ta Tu-yen seized my chin and forced the poisoned wine into my mouth. The acrid bitterness tore through me. Pain racked my body, I collapsed, trembling. Blood welled at my lips, my strength drained away. Yet in that final agony, clarity came. Perhaps this was awakening before death. I lay on the ground, tears mingled with laughter. As memories surged, I choked out. Mother. Gigi hurts so much. A lifetime's torment pierced to the bone. For 7 years I had endured storms of blood and power beside him, risked my life to bear him a prince. A mistake beyond redemption. A pain beyond endurance. If heaven granted me another chance, I would see them all destroyed. When I opened my eyes again, I heard the voice of Bai Shuang, my close maidservant. My lady, you've just completed confinement, your body is still weak. I'll order the kitchens to prepare nourishing food. Looking at Bai Shuang, I could not hold back my tears. Why do you weep, my lady? In my past life, when disaster struck, Bai Shuang knelt and kowtowed until her face bled, swearing to Ta Tu-yen that I had never betrayed him. But he did not believe, and cruelly ordered her death. I wiped my tears, clutched her hand, and inquired about the situation. I realized I had returned to the day when Suo Weiwei entered the palace as consort, the very day Guowei killed himself for love. Guowei had long adored my cousin Suo Weiwei. But the Suo family had already planned her path, seduce Ta Tu-yen and enter the palace. She was lively and charming, with 3 parts of my youthful beauty. While I was pregnant and unable to manage the harem, she pretended to visit the dowager, then performed a butterfly dance in the imperial gardens that bewitched Ta Tu-yen. Soon after, despite my nearing childbirth, he issued an edict to make Suo Weiwei noble consort, choosing this very day for her entry. Guowei secretly resented Ta Tu-yen and my father for stripping his power years ago. Now, the woman he loved was summoned into the palace. Unable to strike back at the emperor, he turned his hatred upon me. Thus, before taking his own life, he left behind a testament, full of words of eternal love for me, the empress. Once he died, the Suo family pushed their scheme, urging ministers to demand my deposition, shaming me for unchastity. But this time, their plot was not yet complete. Guowei had not yet died. If they long so much for death, then in this life, I will personally send them on their way. Before my marriage, Mother, fearing my weak position in the palace, secretly spent a fortune to train shadow guards for me. In my past life, events moved too swiftly. I was executed before I could command them. Bai Shuang, deliver this prescription to Lin Feng at once. From youth, I had studied medicine under a divine physician, wandering through alleys and villages. If Guowei, out of love, was willing to die to remove me for Suo Weiwei, then this feigned death drug shall be my first gift to them. To welcome the new consort, Ta Tuyen ordered lanterns hung along the palace road. When Suo Weiwei arrived at Phoenix Palace to greet me, her eyes shimmered with shy pride as she bowed. Her gaze, gentle and enchanting, brimmed with triumph. Yet that gentle flow of words, drop by drop, pierced the heart. Otherwise, how could a girl from the inner chambers conceive such a cruel scheme, driving Guowei to die for her, clearing the path for her ascent? I looked at her without expression, the corner of my lips lifting in a faint smile. You and I are sisters. There's no need for such formality. Suo Weiwei rose and said, Elder sister, now you are the empress revered by all the people. But how pitiful for Guowei. He suffered alone for 7 years because of you. Her words dripped with hidden meaning, making every servant and maid in my palace tremble and bow their heads. I merely cast a glance at Bai Shuang. At once she stepped forward, slapped the noble consort twice, and shouted, Impudent! What tutor taught you such lack of propriety? Suo Weiwei was stunned by the blows, but she also understood, those of higher rank could crush her. She swallowed her smile, feigned grievance, tears shimmering as she knelt halfway to apologize. Only I knew her true intent. She sought to spread rumors in the palace, framing me and Guowei as illicit lovers. That night, news spread that Guowei had taken his own life. Whispers surged like waves, the entire harem buzzing. Alone in a shadowed corner, I drank tea while eavesdropping on the chatter of the maids. They say the noble consort is the cousin of the empress. She knows everything of the empress's childhood. I've also heard the prince regent waited for the empress 7 years, their affair long hidden. If so, then the regent is truly the most devoted man alive. Even now he has not taken a wife. His love runs deep. Rumors were invisible blades, sharp enough to kill. Suo Weiwei was certain the emperor would misunderstand me. Yes, Guowei and I had been childhood companions, but she could never imagine, this time, I was already prepared. The next morning, before dawn, Bai Shuang rushed in. My lady, disaster has struck. Calmly, I pinned the golden hairpin into my hair. She cried, last night the regent suddenly killed himself. With the news spreading, this morning the ministers have all submitted memorials demanding your deposition. The emperor summons you to court for judgment. I rose, my fingers brushing Bai Shuang's cheek, smiling gently. Shuang, remember this. No matter the outcome, do not plead for me. This battle, I must not only protect myself, but expose the true faces of the noble consort and the regent before the court. Together, Bai Shuang and I entered the hall of state. The gazes of the ministers, sharp, scornful, like cold knives, cut into me as I walked past. Standing in the center of the hall, I lifted my eyes toward Emperor Ta Tuyen on the throne. Your servant greets the emperor. Ta Tuyen hurled the testament to the floor. Empress, do you know your crime? The scroll fell open, lines of agonized longing from Guowei, recounting entangled meetings, lingering regrets. But those words were never written for me. They were meant for Suo Weiwei in his heart. In the court, Minister Li, follower of Songming's Neo-Confucian teachings, stepped forward to memorialize. Your Majesty, the regent gave his life to prove his devotion, evidence enough of an illicit bond with the empress. This woman must not remain. Such a demon would bring shame upon the realm. Next came Suo Weiwei's father, Chancellor Suo. Your Majesty, the empress is the mother of the nation. how can one who dallies with men be allowed to taint the court's virtue? In the minister's view, the empress should be deposed at once. If the people learned of this scandal, what face would remain for the throne? The regent's suicide for love was undeniable proof. Though my father was grand preceptor in the past, famed for dueling words with heroes in his youth, now at over 50 he no longer had time to find flaws to refute. In the hall of state, my father, a man of lifelong integrity and courage, looked at me once. Then, with trembling steps, he walked forward, tears spilling down. Your Majesty, this servant is willing to resign and return to my hometown. Please, in your mercy, spare my daughter's life. Send her to the cold palace instead. Just as in my previous life, once my father spoke, Ta Tuyen began to hesitate. For he had once been Ta Tuyen's teacher. Without my father's aid and that of his disciples, the one on the throne today could never have been that illegitimate son. A sudden silence fell over the court. Then, at once, the ministers under Chancellor Sua dropped to their knees, crying out together. The regent is dead. We beg your Majesty to depose the Empress, and remove the young prince from Phoenix Palace. I watched my father's frail back. My fists clenched, my heart wrenched in pain. When Ta Tuyen narrowed his eyes, that icy gaze turned on me once again. But I did not falter. I bowed slightly. I beg the Emperor's permission, allow me to open the coffin and examine the body. The entire court was thrown into uproar. Minister Li, aligned with Chancellor Sua, immediately stepped forth to memorialize. This must not be allowed. The regent only just passed away, his body not yet cold. For the Empress to demand the coffin opened is blasphemy toward the dead, it cannot be tolerated. At once, Chancellor Sua himself dropped to one knee, knocking his head to the ground. Your Majesty, I implore you to reconsider carefully. Ta Tuyen's gaze swept over me, his eyes filled with fury. He raged because I had shamed him, shattered the image of a gentle, virtuous empress. Yet again I bowed before him. Your Majesty, I am the mother of the realm, your wife. I beg your permission to open the coffin and examine the body. Compared to the emperor's dignity, what was one regent's life? What was weighty, what was trivial, no one knew better than Ta Tuyen. Seeing my unwavering resolve, before long, Guowei's body was brought into the hall. His face pale, eyes closed, no breath remaining, anyone could see he was cold, stiff, lifeless. The ministers murmured in alarm. But they did not know, it was my hand that had altered the dosage of the feigned death drug. After 6 hours, his strength would gradually return. When the imperial physician arrived, he only needed to feel the pulse before his expression changed at once. Your Majesty, the regent has ingested 9 nether herb, a forbidden poison from the previous dynasty. It induces a state of false death. The court drew sharp breaths. Even Ta Tuyen himself was stunned. The physician inserted a silver needle, and Guowei's eyes suddenly flew open. He struggled to sit upright, bewildered gaze sweeping the hall. The moment he saw Ta Tuyen, his body reacted instinctively. He hastily rose and bowed. This servant greets your Majesty. Quick-witted, Ta Tuyen's voice rang cold across the hall. Impudence! You dare feign death to deceive me. Guowei, what is your true intent? At those words, Guowei's mind cleared in an instant. The haze in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by astonishment, shock, and panic. He could not help but exclaim. I am truly not dead. I curved my lips in a faint smile. Before Ta Tuyen could utter another word, I strode up to Guowei. Without a word, I struck him hard across the face. Then I flung the testament he had written before him. Prince Regent. Why did you feign death to tarnish my innocence? I have been married to the Emperor for 7 years, never once harboring divided affections. In my eyes, there has only ever been His Majesty, yet you filled this testament with schemes about me. What is your intent? Guowei's face instantly turned ashen, cold sweat breaking across his brow. I was the Empress, the rightful wife Ta Tuyen had formally taken. If, upon revival, Guo Wei dared overstep, his crime would extend beyond mere poison. Terrified, he collapsed to his knees, kowtowing desperately before the emperor. Your Majesty, this servant has never once entertained improper thoughts toward the empress. She is mother of the realm, this servant only admires and respects her. The testament mentions no romance, but perhaps malicious tongues twisted its meaning to frame me. I beg your Majesty to see the truth, I am wronged. His words were deliberately ambiguous. Indeed, the testament did not openly speak of love, yet its undertones dripped with sentiment. Guo Wei pressed his forehead to the ground, declaring loudly. Though I have known the Empress since childhood, in these 7 years we have met only at court banquets, never in private, nor exchanged letters. Your Majesty, if you doubt this servant, do you also doubt the Empress herself? His bold defense made Ta Tuyen unwilling to pursue the matter further in open court. To uphold appearances, it was enough that the Empress be cleared of guilt. But he would not easily spare Guo Wei. With a cold face, Ta Tuyen ordered the eunuch to draft an imperial decree. All Guo Wei's offices were stripped away. For the sake of his father's past service, he was demoted to a commandery prince. The rest would await judgment once the Court of Justice completed its investigation. Hearing the decree, Guo Wei immediately knelt to give thanks. Ta Tuyen, seething, saw no other petitions pressing and abruptly dismissed court. The ministers departed in a rush like receding tide. Only Guo Wei, his limbs stiff from a night in the coffin, lagged behind. But just as he reached the doorway, a jade pendant suddenly slipped from his belt. The moment it struck the floor, my heart clenched. I looked instantly toward Ta Tuyen upon the throne. He had risen to his feet, his eyes frozen upon me like shards of ice. Impossible. Why was my jade pendant in his possession? Sua Weiwei had indeed laid her trap in advance. That pendant, designed by my elder brother, crafted by skilled artisans, given to me at my wedding. Back then, Sua Weiwei had still seemed close to me. She had once played with it, delayed returning it until the next day. Since then, I had carried it always at my side. Those nearest me all knew it was mine, especially Ta Tuyen. Never did I imagine that even then, Sua Weiwei had hidden a blade within her softness. Ta Tuyen erupted in fury. Empress, how long do you intend to deny? At once I fell to my knees, my voice steady but not arrogant. Your Majesty, please discern clearly, this is not my jade pendant. Someone has deliberately forged it. Yet even if 2 pendants were placed side by side for comparison, Ta Tuyen would never believe. He even suspected that Guo Wei and I had exchanged tokens of affection. To this point, you still dare deny it. Ta Tuyen's fury erupted, his eyes blazing with killing intent. Empress. As the head of the 6 palaces, instead of setting an example, you grow ever more wanton and unruly. Consort Sua Weiwei is dignified and virtuous, far surpassing you. If you cannot manage the harem, then let Sua Weiwei assist you in its governance. The moment Sua Weiwei entered the palace, the power of the Empress was stripped away. This alone was enough to show, I, the Empress, had become despised, a figurehead with title but no authority. As Guo Wei was dragged from the hall, I caught a glimpse of the smirk tugging at his lips. He thought himself clever, believing he had ensnared me, stripped me of power, and secured his escape. But he did not know, I would never let him go unpunished. In 3 months, when the feigned death potion within his body lost control of the hidden poison, it would cease to work. Then, he would endure the agony of its resurgence, unable to live, unable to die. Guo Wei, savor it well. Do not die too soon. The moment news from court reached her, Sua Weiwei's smile bloomed bright. She delighted in the power Ta Tuyen had handed her, convinced her scheme had succeeded, and I was utterly crushed. Having only just entered the palace, she was already ennobled as noble consort, now granted authority over the 6 palaces. Everyone vied to flatter her, lifting her high as though to the heavens. She believed her fortune had arrived. At dusk, she ordered her maid to comb her hair and adorn her, awaiting Ta Tuyen's arrival at her palace. Yet that night, Ta Tuyen did not come to her at all. Instead, he casually chose the token of another low-ranking maid. This imperial act was nothing less than a slap across Suo Weiyue's face, stripping her of all dignity. Her rage ignited instantly. Weeping, she nearly rushed from her chambers to confront Ta Tuyen, but was restrained by her chief maid, who even threatened death to dissuade her. In her fury, Suo Weiyue struck that maid a dozen times across the face before calming slightly. That night, steeped in hatred toward me, Suo Weiyue drifted into sleep, and dreamt a dream vivid beyond measure. In it, she saw the emperor's death. She herself served as regent, guiding the prince to the throne. Behind the curtain she ruled, the empress dowager revered by 10,000. In the dream, she stood before the dragon throne, speaking on behalf of the frail young emperor to the gathered ministers. "Rise, my lords." The next morning, Suo Weiyue awoke with renewed spirit. Yesterday's fury was gone, replaced by ruthless determination. Her gaze turned toward Phoenix Palace, filled with killing intent, as though everything I possessed rightfully belonged to her. She believed herself destined by heaven to be Empress Dowager. But she did not know, all her rambling words in sleep had been whispered back to me by the maid who served her at night. A few days later, Suo Weiyue dressed in a dancer's costume from the western regions. Under the moonlight she sat with pipa in hand, plucking strings and humming melodies. Feigning coincidence, she encountered Ta Tuyen in the imperial gardens and successfully drew his attention. She was confident she would soon bear a prince, openly challenging me. Thus she clung ever closer to Ta Tuyen, using every scheme to entice his favor. Yet over a month had passed since her entry into the palace. In the last half-month, though she was favored nearly every night, still she had not conceived. This gnawed at her, leaving her restless. She dared not speak to the imperial physicians. Instead, she turned to the one she trusted most outside the palace, Guowei. She secretly sent word to the regent's residence, inviting Guowei to come in disguise during the Mid-Autumn Festival. When they met, Suo Weiyue could not restrain herself. She confessed her plea. "Guowei, I am with His Majesty every day, yet I have not conceived." Her eyes, pitiful and pleading, fixed on him as her voice softened. "I long to bear a prince, to secure my place in the palace. I heard there is a sect far away, called Chaoyun sect, whose master's medical skills are so great they can bring the dead back to life. Could you go and beg for a fertility potion for me?" Guowei had once been willing to die for her. How much easier, then, to fetch medicine. He agreed instantly, without hesitation. This, too, I learned, through a letter the sect master sent back by carrier pigeon. But they did not know, I was the last and only disciple of the reclusive elder of Chaoyun sect. Recognizing Guowei as my childhood acquaintance, the sect master revealed everything to me. A fertility drug. Very well. I would prepare one myself, made solely for Suo Weiyue. A gift that would send both her and Guowei straight to hell. From the day Suo Weiyue began drinking the supposed conception tonic, her complexion grew ever more radiant. Her skin turned pale as jade, tinged with rosy glow. Her small, delicate face lit often with bright smiles. Ta Tuyen frequently drew her token, spending night after night in her chambers. Gradually, with her youthful beauty and lively charm, Suo Weiyue became the most favored consort in the harem. Together she and Ta Tuyen were affectionate, inseparable, as sweet as honey. For an entire month she basked in his nightly favor, while the other consorts could only gaze on in envy. She even boasted loudly that she would one day bear the crown prince. And indeed, so it seemed. Not long after, joyous news spread from Suo Weiyue's palace, she was with child. Bai Shuang, upon hearing the whispers from outside, returned with eyes brimming, tears spilling down. "My lady, now in the palace no one holds you in regard. Instead, all bow to consort Suo Weiyue. Even His Majesty visits her chambers constantly. If she bears a prince, I fear the position of our crown prince will be in danger. Her gaze was filled with worry, afraid I would lose both favor and the throne of empress. But I felt no fear. I calmly urged her to sit with me, pouring tea into her cup. When the farce of Moon Palace was staged, it was then I sipped the last of my 10 tales of treasured Finshui tea. In the first month of Sua Weiyue's pregnancy, the imperial astronomer made calculations. He declared that the child in her womb would bring fortune to the dynasty, destined for greatness. Tatian's joy knew no bounds. He lavished endless treasures upon her palace, fearful she might lack a single thing. With the child and the emperor's doting, Sua Weiwei grew ever more arrogant. That day, in the imperial garden, when our paths crossed, her eyes glittered only with mockery. Empress, you are no longer young, while His Majesty and I are still in our prime. Out of kindness, I remind you, preserve your health, lest I be burdened by dreams too long. I did not deign to answer. Turning away, I left her behind. This year, I was 25. Indeed, in the harem, I was no longer young. Yet I had borne both a prince and a princess. What mattered was that they were legitimate heirs of the main bloodline. That was enough. For what I sought was never fleeting favor, but power, and the challenges that came with it. Half a month later, the Imperial Academy hosted the 6 arts competition. A grand event held once every 2 years. After court was dismissed, the emperor and ministers hurried to attend. The consorts, too, were seated properly to watch. I sat beside Tatuyen in the great hall, Sua Weiwei sat at his other side, radiant in her pride as the most favored consort. From the high dais, the view below was blurred, but all eyes fixed on the small figure in embroidered robes, hair bound high, claiming first place. The judges continually passed up written reports of the standings. The champion was a 5-year-old child. Ministers and noble ladies below praised in unison. What family's young master could be so gifted? A boy so brilliant will surely be the court's future hope. I smiled faintly, unable to tear my gaze from that child. Until Tatuyen summoned the top 3 onto the stage to receive their rewards. The little girl with bright, intelligent eyes quickly ran onto the stage. Her gaze sparkled as she looked at me, a radiant smile spreading across her small face. The head of the Imperial Academy, who had come forward to bestow the award, froze when he saw her. He dropped to his knees at once. This servant greets the eldest princess. The hall erupted in gasps. All eyes turned, astonished. The champion turned out to be the eldest princess, the child who had never appeared before the public. To think the eldest princess is so brilliant, it must be the blessing of His Majesty and the Empress, they exclaimed. At this, Sua Weiyue's expression shifted sharply. Her hand brushed the swelling of her belly as she turned eyes of venom upon me. She had never expected that my daughter would prove such a rare prodigy. Years ago, Tatuyen had scorned me for bearing a daughter as my firstborn instead of a prince. He had cast but a single glance at her, Yunhua, on the day of her birth, and then ignored her for 5 long years. In that time, it was my hands alone that raised her. Now, Yunhua restored his honor, bringing him pride beyond measure. His gaze softened, overflowing with paternal pride, as he looked upon her standing on the stage. As expected of my child. Brilliant, just like me. The ministers chorused their praise, their voices swelling in unison. Already elated, Tatuyen grew even more jubilant. With a sweep of his hand, he conferred upon Yunhua the noble title of Princess Yongning. Tonight, a banquet shall be held in the Golden Throne Hall in celebration of Princess Yongning. The court prostrated themselves. Your Majesty's wisdom is boundless, your blessings endless. For the first time in years, Tatuyen's cold features warmed with a smile. He beckoned Yunhua forward. But before she could step closer, his face suddenly drained of color, he collapsed in a faint before the throne. Shock thundered through the hall. His Majesty. Summon the physicians at once. Chaos erupted. No one understood why the emperor, moments ago so vigorous, had fallen unconscious. only I knew. This was the first sign of poison. Everything was only beginning. The imperial physician examined him, claiming exhaustion was the cause, unable to uncover the truth. Since no clear symptoms remained, Ta Tuyen dismissed it lightly. Now that Suo Weiwa tended him day and night, he believed he needed nothing from me. As I left alongside the physician, I encountered the close guard of Guo Wei. He rushed forward, but upon seeing me, quickly restrained his worry and bowed respectfully. Feigning ignorance, I asked, "What is it that makes you so anxious?" "Your Majesty the Empress, Commandery Prince Guo Wei has fallen gravely ill. He suffers pounding headaches, nausea, constant vomiting. The physician's medicines avail him nothing. He lies bedridden now, unable even to eat. I beg you, allow Imperial Physician Wei to go treat him." By my calculations, it was indeed time for the poison within him to surface. But Guo Wei did not yet know, his sickness was only beginning. The nausea, the pain, mere preludes. As time passed, the venom would twist into agony unendurable. Feigning concern, I ordered Physician Wei to hurry to his side. Yet in my heart, I longed for the day Guo Wei would finally draw his last breath. Meanwhile, Ta Tuyen remained intoxicated with Suo Weiwa's sweetness. By the second month, her belly swelled visibly. The child within seemed to grow at an unnatural pace, 2 months, yet as large as 3 or 4. Suo Weiwa, far from worried, only grew more triumphant. She boasted to Ta Tuyen, "Your Majesty, it must be the blessing of carrying a prince of fortune that makes my belly so large so quickly. Surely it is inherited from you." The imperial physician, after checking the pulse, found nothing amiss. Thus, Suo Weiwei grew ever more arrogant, her behavior nearly tyrannical within the harem. That day, Yunhua had made peach blossom cakes in the imperial kitchen, intending to bring them to Ta Tuyen. On the way, she was intercepted by Suo Weiwei. "Stop." Yunhua frowned, her bright eyes sweeping over Suo Weiwei, her small face showing clear distaste. Since becoming pregnant, Suo Weiwei had eaten far more than usual, needing constant nourishment. The sight of the freshly baked peach blossom cakes made her mouth water. She reached out to take one, but Yunhua quickly pulled the tray away. "You cannot eat this." Though still a child, Yunhua's words were sharp, fearless. Suo Weiwei sneered, contempt twisting her face. "In this palace, there is nothing I cannot eat. Tell me, why should I not?" Yunhua hugged the tray close, unwilling to let her hard work be stolen. "This is for father. He has not eaten yet. Why should you demand it first?" At the mention that the cakes were meant for Ta Tuyen, Suo Weiwei's irritation deepened, making her desire to taste one only stronger. She smiled coldly, her voice dripping with malice. "I did not expect the little princess to be so cruel, disrespecting her elders. My belly carries His Majesty's prince, what harm is there in me eating one of your cakes?" At her signal, the palace maid surged forward. Outnumbered, Yunhua was forcibly restrained, the tray ripped from her hands. "This is for my father," Yunhua cried out. Suo Weiwei gave a chilling laugh, her tone scornful. "What belongs to His Majesty is mine as well. Do you understand?" She picked up a cake, bringing it to her lips. But before she could bite down, a sharp pain twisted her belly. Even so, she forced herself to take a bite before tossing the tray aside. Sweat poured down her face as her entire body trembled. "Consort!" The maid's cries rose in panic. From between her legs, fresh blood streamed, hot and thick. Eyes wide with terror, Suo Weiwei screamed. "Physician! Fetch the physician!" When news reached me, I rushed at once to Moon Palace. By the time I arrived, Suo Weiwei's face was pale as death. She wept before Ta Tuyen. "Your Majesty, I only ate one of Princess Yongning's cakes, yet I have lost our prince. Surely it was by the Empress's order. She meant to harm my child." Tears fell in torrents, her gaze filled with despair and accusation. I hurried inside, gathering Yunhua into my arms. Shaken, she pressed her lips tightly together, her eyes rimmed red. Mother, I didn't. Suo Weiwei ignored her completely, crying louder, insisting Yunhua was the murderer of her unborn child. Your Majesty, you must bring justice for me. Ta Tuyen's face darkened, fury rising like a storm. His cold eyes fixed upon Yunhua. Afraid that gaze would scar her forever, I raised my hand to cover her eyes. Your Majesty, I said firmly, Princess Yongning is but a child. How could she commit such cruelty? Your Majesty, please, do not listen only to the words of my younger sister. Let the imperial physician speak. Wei, the trusted physician of Ta Tuyen, stepped forward. His hesitation made Ta Tuyen's patience snap. If you cannot give me a conclusion today, leave the imperial medical court at once. Wei dropped to his knees, trembling as he said. Your Majesty, this servant dares to speak the truth. Consort Suo Weiwei has suffered 2 miscarriages in the past. It is difficult for her to conceive again. Losing the child this time was only to be expected. The words fell, and Moon Palace plunged into silence. Ta Tuyen's face darkened. Suo Weiwei's composure shattered. She broke free from his arms, her face twisted in panic, screaming. You lie. I am still young, how could I have miscarried? Her complexion drained of all color. She tried to clutch Ta Tuyen's hand, but he avoided her touch. Wei. Before I entered the palace, I was a maiden of the boudoir, how could there be such a thing? She pressed harder, her voice shrill. Say it. Who ordered you to slander me? Who seeks to destroy me? Wei remained prostrate, not daring to lift his head. Your Majesty, this servant speaks only truth. When still young, Consort Suo Weiwei bore a child. Her body was damaged, making it difficult to keep a pregnancy. The words struck like a death sentence. Suo Weiwei's eyes widened with terror. She looked wildly around the hall, finally fixing on me. It's you. It must be you. You ordered the physician to ruin me, so that your son and Princess Yongning could remain secure. I lifted the half-eaten peach blossom cake Suo Weiwei had bitten and handed it to the physician. After examination, he declared at once. Your Majesty, there is no poison in the cake prepared by Princess Yongning. Thus, from beginning to end, the fault lay entirely with Suo Weiwei. Ta Tuyen, who had frowned the whole while, suddenly clenched his fist. He slammed the table, his gaze colder than steel as it swept over her. I knew that look better than anyone. In his heart now, she was nothing more than useless refuse. Suo Fei, for sowing chaos in the harem, your crime is beyond pardon. From this day forth, you are banished to the cold palace. The emperor's order left no room for protest. None dared speak. Suo Weiwei, who only moments ago had shouted so loudly, collapsed to the ground in despair. Her pale face streamed with tears. Your Majesty. Your Majesty, I am wronged. I have never lain with another man, never borne another child. This was my first child with you. But Ta Tuyen's eyes held only frost, devoid of all feeling. The heart of an emperor was thus, merciless, pitiless. Though Suo Weiwei was young and beautiful, in the end she was nothing. Yes, she may have been wronged. But what did it matter? She dared harm my family, steal my child, strike at my daughter. This was the ending she deserved. In desperation, Suo Weiwei crawled forward on her knees, clutching at Ta Tuyen's leg. Your Majesty, I have shared countless days of intimacy with you. Do you not know who I am? I laughed faintly, at her naivety. Appealing to emotion now was nothing more than throwing oil onto the flames. Ta Tuyen's fury exploded. He lashed out with a savage kick to her belly. At once, Suo Weiwei collapsed in agony, drenched in cold sweat, curled upon the ground, unable to rise. At last, she was dragged out of the chamber by servants and cast into the desolate cold palace. Because of her, Ta Tuyen fell into gloom, and for a long time he ceased visiting the harem. I waited in silence, calculating, until finally the news I had long awaited arrived. Bai Shuang hurried in, eyes wide. My lady, Commandery Prince Guowei passed away last night. His Majesty has ordered his body brought to the Imperial Medical Court for autopsy. I set down the golden hairpin, my gaze falling upon my reflection in the bronze mirror. For a fleeting moment, I saw the woman I had been in my past life, lonely, abandoned, with no one to rely on. Satisfaction welled within me, the suffocating knot in my chest dissolved. But Ta Tuyen, after the last lesson, had grown more cautious. Come with me to see him. We went to the Imperial Medical Court. When the white cloth was lifted, the withered, yellowed corpse of Guowei lay revealed. Gasps rippled through the hall at the horror of his death. Only in my eyes flashed a hidden light. I quickly donned the mask of fear, pretending to tremble, unable to look. Ta Tuyen drew me into his arms, whispering softly. Frightened. Frightened. How could I fear, when I was the one who killed him? After the examination, Wei bowed and reported. Your Majesty, the Commandery Prince has passed. Please restrain your grief. Ta Tuyen's face betrayed no slackening. Do you know how he died? My heart sank. He truly intended to investigate Guowei's death. The Commandery Prince perished strangely, Wei continued. It seems he was struck by a rare poison. He lost the use of his senses, could no longer care for himself. Then his organs decayed from within, his flesh rotted, his bones crystallized. He endured unending torment, until at last he died in unbearable pain. Ta Tuyen's brows knitted tight. His voice was low, heavy. Do you know what poison this was? Wei pressed his head low. This servant is incompetent. I have not yet found the cause. Ta Tuyen's displeasure flared, he scolded harshly, then swept his sleeve and left. He did not yet know that even now, poison was creeping through his own veins. The poison that consumed Guowei had come from Suo Weiwei, slow, subtle, unnoticed. But the venom within Ta Tuyen, when its time came, it would erupt like a storm. After Guowei's death, Ta Tuyen buried himself in state affairs, spending his days in the study over memorials. I ordered longevity cakes prepared and personally brought them to him. At the study doors, a eunuch barred me. Your Majesty, please persuade His Majesty to rest. I arched a brow. Why do you say so? The eunuch sighed, eyes full of worry. Of late, His Majesty coughs blood each night. He cannot sleep, he pores over memorials until dawn. If this continues, this old slave's heart will break. Softly I replied, let me go in and see. Carrying the tray, I stepped inside. At once, a memorial was hurled straight at me. A hoarse cough followed, then a thunderous roar. Who dares open the door and let in the light? Drag them out and behead them. Your Majesty, it is I. Ta Tuyen said no more, tacitly allowing me entry. I walked to his side, setting the tray down. Your Majesty, you are weary. You must rest. He turned to look at me. His face was ashen, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. He closed them at last, too exhausted to keep them open. He whispered hoarsely, Empress, of late, I often dream of the first time I met you. Your Majesty, I answered gently, I have been at your side for 7 years. Even when the world turned away from you, I remained. I reached out and clasped his cold hand. Ta Tuyen lowered his head and pressed a tender kiss to the back of my hand. At that moment, a eunuch hurried forward to report. Your Majesty, the Chief Justice of the Grand Court requests an audience. Ta Tuyen's gaze sharpened, chilling as it fell upon me. He had always doubted my ties to Guowei. And secretly, he had commanded the Grand Court to investigate. The justice entered, bowing low first. His eyes flickered toward me, hinting that I should excuse myself from matters of state. Your Majesty, this consort will withdraw, I said, preparing to leave with the tray of rui cakes. But before I could move, a hand gripped mine tightly. No need. Since Tatuyen had spoken, the justice could no longer object. He laid evidence before the throne. Your Majesty, this servant has discovered the truth. His glance brushed past me, and then, in a quiet voice, he spoke. Her Majesty the Empress has no connection whatsoever to the Commandery Prince. The one who truly colluded with him was Consort Sua Weiwei. In that instant, the web of schemes between Sua Weiwei and Guowei was torn open. After Guowei's death, the justice had searched his residence. In a hidden chamber of his study, he uncovered secret letters overflowing with Sua Weiwei's affection, cherished by Guowei like treasures. Among them was one in which Guowei pleaded desperately, begging her not to enter the palace as a consort. And more, evidence of her plot, forcing him to take poison and conspiring with the Sua clan to frame me. The proofs lay clear before Tatuyen's eyes. Fury burst within him, he slammed the letters onto the desk. Despicable. He surged to his feet, chest heaving, breath ragged. Suddenly, the taste of iron filled his throat, and he spat a mouthful of blood. Your Majesty! I cried, rushing to his side. Leaning against me, he wiped the blood from his lips with a cold smile. It is nothing. Take me to the cold palace. So it was, he could not wait another moment to punish Sua Weiwei. Good. I had long awaited this. At the cold palace, Sua Weiwei's eyes lit up instantly. She stumbled forward, tears brimming with false joy, unable to hide her excitement. Falling to her knees, she cried, Your Majesty. You've come to bring me back, haven't you? You've uncovered the truth, you must have come to restore me. Her tear-streaked face lifted, trembling with hope. I never miscarried, never. But Tatuyen's hand struck her with a resounding slap. Blood seeped from the corner of her lips. She stared at him in shock and despair. Why, Your Majesty, why do you still not believe me? He seized the letters from the eunuch's hands and flung them in her face. Look at them yourself. How can I believe you? The letters scattered across the ground. Sua Weiwei scrambled, clutching one, her whole body trembling as horror clouded her eyes. Your Majesty. Guowei and I, we are innocent. But even she could not bring conviction to her own words. Shaking, she gripped the paper, despair flooding her gaze. I, watching, could only feel a deep, cold satisfaction. Tatuyen gripped her chin, his voice dripping with scorn. Innocent. You and Guowei plotted against the Empress, that is innocence. You threw her into the jaws of slander, innocence. This time you schemed against her. Next time, will it be me? Sua Weiwei shook her head wildly, tears streaming like rain. And then. One day you would conspire with Guowei to kill me, to drag me down from the throne. No, it is not so. But no matter how she tried, her pleas fell on deaf ears. No one would listen, and no one would believe her. The rage of Tatuyen had reached its peak. His face pale as death, he struck Sua Weiwei across the face once more. Bring the poison wine. With that, he gave the order. A eunuch hurried away to fetch it. Too weary to deal with her further, Tatuyen climbed into his palanquin and departed the cold palace. I remained, gazing calmly at Sua Weiwei. She scrambled toward me, kneeling, her forehead slamming into the ground again and again. Sister. Please, save me. Sister, I was wrong. Her brow bled, her appearance pitiful beyond words. I lifted my hand, signaling the servants to withdraw. In the frozen silence of the cold palace, only she and I remained. I smiled brilliantly, my heart overflowing with delight unspeakable. My dear sister, are you happy now? Everything you ever had was given by me. At my words, Sua Weiwei's pupils contracted. Her face hardened, voice trembling with horror. You. The medicine I drank, the pregnancy, it was you. You laced the so-called fertility tonic yourself, poisoned the child in my womb so it would appear to be a miscarriage. And Guowei, he too, it was you who killed him. I let out a cold laugh, a tear glittering in my eye. In my past life, I never sought to fight you. Yet you struck me when my guard was down, destroyed me. Did you ever deserve to contend with me? Terror flooded her gaze. It was you, all of it was you. Wild with desperation, she staggered to her feet, rushing toward the door. I must tell His Majesty. He must know you were the one who framed me. Your Majesty, I am innocent. But in this place, every soul belonged to me. Who would hear her screams? I seized her by the hair, yanking her back from the threshold. Gripping her chin, I forced the cup of poison wine against her lips, pouring it down her throat. Setting the cup aside, I patted her cheek lightly. Do not trouble yourself with whether he believes you. You and Guowei are both bound for death. He waits for you already in the underworld, go and join him. As for Ta Tuyen, when he descends, you may explain it all to him face to face. But my plans had only begun. Sua Weiwei clawed at her throat, retching and choking. I don't want to die. Whether she lived or died was no longer hers to decide. I summoned Bai Shuang and commanded her to finish it. Obediently, Bai Shuang tightened the silk cord around Sua Weiwei's throat. As the door closed, I watched her face flush crimson from suffocation, her eyes wide with despair. How vivid, how satisfying. Soon after, Ta Tuyen ordered the extermination of the entire Sua clan. The execution of the Grand Chancellor's household sent shockwaves through the court. But Ta Tuyen himself unraveled further with each passing day. His mind grew unstable, his temper erratic. He feared the light, unable to sleep through the nights, brooding in endless gloom. The palace trembled beneath his shadow. In a single month, he decreed the execution of 10 palace maids and 8 eunuchs. All for the smallest of offenses that displeased his eye. In his eyes, human life was no more than weeds, without the slightest worth. To prevent him from losing control, I often burned calming incense at his side. Thus, the place he loved most was mine. He would lean upon my shoulder, his gaze filled with false tenderness. Gigi, it was I who was wrong. The tip of my finger brushed across his gaunt cheek. I smiled sweetly. Your Majesty, in what way were you wrong? He clasped my hand tightly, lowering his head, his voice heavy with regret. Gigi, I should not have trusted Sua Weiwei. I should not have favored her, only to let you down. From beginning to end, the only one by my side, the only one who believed in me, was you. Gigi, we have known each other for so many years. Yet it has been long since I could sit and talk with you like this. These years, it was my fault, I neglected you. I listened in silence, without reply. I wanted to hear my mother call me Gigi. I wanted to hear my father call me Gigi. But never, never did I wish to hear that word from his lips. It made me feel filthy. Defiled. From then on, Ta Tuyen clung to me, recounting memories, whispering apologies, as though I were the last reed he could grasp before drowning. But his condition only worsened. He spent his days sunken in the sickbed, vomiting blood, first scarlet, then black. The physicians panicked, prescribing endless drafts, yet none availed him. One day, he clutched me from behind, his jaw resting upon my shoulder, rubbing softly like a wounded child. Gigi, why do you never call me anymore? I smiled faintly. Your Majesty, what are you saying? His voice was low and sorrowful, fragile as a boy's first heartbreak. Why do you not call me husband? Why not call me Tuyen? I turned, facing him directly. His weary, hollow eyes met mine. I smiled. Then, does your Majesty even know my name? He froze. Gigi. And my full name. For a long while, he stared blankly. His lips trembled, dodging the answer. Gigi, I have taken so much medicine. I cannot remember. No. I I had never once given him anything to cloud his memory. It was not that he could not remember. It was that he had forgotten. To him, I was his empress, mother of his princes and princesses, and Gigi. But my father and mother would never forget. I am Shinjinji, the youngest and most cherished daughter of the Shin family. Afterwards, Tatuyen grew weaker still. Even eating became torment. That night, he lay upon the imperial bed draped in yellow silk, his eyes vacant as he stared into mine. Gigi, call me husband just once. I laughed coldly, no longer concealing my revulsion. Looking down on him from above, I asked icily. Tell me, have you ever seen a wife who poisons her own husband? Yes. Poison. But the poison was never meant for him. It was for the woman already dead, Consort Sua. Tatuyen's frail eyes widened in shock. He kept staring at me, reaching out his trembling hand to touch me, yet I slipped aside. Your Majesty, have you not realized? Your body grows weaker by the day. Since you lay with Sua Weiwei, you fainted at the library, you spat blood, feared the light, your flesh withered. I laughed coldly, my eyes glinting with malice. The poison in Sua Weiwei was mine. Her miscarriage was false, I orchestrated it. The feigned death of Guo Wei was my scheme as well. Even your intimacy with her was a mistake. I laced her body with venom so that you two would wither together. Tell me, is that not amusing? Power over the throne. Power over the court. Power over the harem. I wanted it all. Tatuyen struggled to rise, but I pressed him down into the bed. His lips quivered, his faint voice rasped, Shen. Jean, Ji. I tilted my head innocently, smiling as if I were pure. Your Majesty, do you still wish for me to call you husband? He continued to whisper my name over and over, until at last, in helpless fury, his eyes closed forever. I stepped outside and screamed, weeping bitterly. His Majesty is dead. My youngest son, Ta Yuyen, was far too young to inherit the throne. Thus, I drew fierce brows upon my daughter, Yunhua, disguised her as a boy, and placed her upon the dragon throne in his stead. When she entered court, she wore the emperor's crown, a jade pendant veiling her face, none could recognize her true form. I guided her through affairs of state, and she, bright and quick-witted, understood with but a word. Yuyen cared nothing for governance, he preferred music, painting, poetry, cats, and crickets. But Yunhua grew into majesty. At merely 10 years old, her bearing rivaled that of any minister. 5 years of her reign, we reformed the realm. Women entered the court. Men could no longer wed countless wives. I decreed one husband, one wife. Though ministers grumbled, none dared oppose me, for under my regency, the borders lay peaceful, foreign nations allied, and no war ever breached our gates. Yet on one fateful day, both my father and mother departed this world together. From then on, no one ever called me Ziuzi again. 5 years later, Yuyen sought to leave the palace, to study medicine atop Mount Chaoyun. But just before his departure, Yunhua's identity was unmasked. The ministers flooded the court, crying out, "A woman cannot be emperor. Where lies the dignity of our dynasty?" For 5 years we have been deceived. Yunhua stood tall in the grand hall, her back straight, her voice clear. "Tell me, why cannot a woman rule?" They shouted back. "No dynasty has ever crowned a woman. This is no precedent but disgrace." Her eyes narrowed, displeasure sharp. "Why cannot a woman rule? The realm is important. The lives of the people are important. Are women not so? Since I was 5, I surpassed the sons you so carefully tutored. You trained your boys to be generals, scholars, scribes, and girls. To be wives, to be mothers, to be slaves. Why?" The ministers faltered into silence. None could answer. Still, they persisted. Until I stepped forth from behind the hall. My gaze swept across them. Every man trembled. Yunhua bowed respectfully. Your Majesty greets the Empress Dowager. They fell to their knees. I did not allow them to rise. Kneel, and listen. 5 years of regency. 2 allied nations. No border wars. The people live in peace. You call this betrayal of the people. You cage your wives, you chain your daughters. They are not wives, nor daughters, they are slaves. Now, women can walk the streets, they can serve as officials, they can lead armies. Brave. Brilliant. Tell me, when have they ever been lesser than you? I am the Empress Dowager. Yunhua is the Emperor. If you can name a single grievous fault in her reign, she will abdicate this very day. None dared speak. None could. Thus, I broke the old world. And so, Yunhua ascended as the first reigning empress in history. At last, I fulfilled my lifelong vow. The end.